Good morning. I'm going to give you just a minute to see who will pop on here, because I like to know who I'm talking to if possible. And so I'm going to give you just a minute and enjoy the sounds of the highway. See the beautiful trees behind me? Let me just swing you around here and show you at a glimpse. Well, I'm really going to wait till somebody gets on here, if I can. But while I'm waiting, let me show you a glimpse of where I am. Oops. I want my stuff to blow away. Hi, Linda. Welcome this morning. I'm going to turn this thing around if I can. I always have trouble doing this. Well, maybe I can't. Good morning, Carolyn. Carolyn, you could probably guess where I'm at if I could figure out how to turn this camera around. Let's see if that'll do it. That did it. All right. There's the tabernacle. And no, I'll just tell you right now, I'm not on the Bristow campground right now. I'm on another campground. And here's the dining shack and the concession stand. It says ice cold soda pop. Woo. There's the highway down there, down this beautiful hill, and there's the girls' dorms and the boys' dorms. I am at Sapulpa, Oklahoma, at the Sapulpa Holiness Campground. There's a reason I'm here. I had every intention of sleeping in my car this week. I'm not homeless. I just like to car camp. And I had not car camped since last October. And so I had my car loaded. I had my bed made, everything made out. And Monday night, it was sweltering hot. And I crawled up in there on my bed, and the sweat poured. And I could not go to sleep. So about 11:30, I got out of the bed, got in the front seat of my car, and I drove home. Got home about 1 o'clock. I drove very slowly. It was a challenge for me to see, but the Lord helped me, and I got home to my air-conditioned house. And so I knew it just wasn't going to work this week. I wasn't going to be able to sleep in my car. So I was referred to a couple who takes care of the Sapulpa campground, which is only about 20 miles from the Bristow campground. And they have some family rooms over here that they let people stay in during the Bristow camp meeting as well as during the Sapulpa camp meeting. And so I contacted them, and they had one room empty that someone had backed out that was supposed to be here. And so I moved all my belongings over here, and hang on. I've got allergies. Kombucha today. I've got allergies. And so I've enjoyed air-conditioned comfort the last 2 nights staying here at the Sapulpa campground. So I neglected Tuesday with everything that was going on to get on Tuesday. It was a crazy day. And so I wanted to get on here this morning. I knew I wouldn't probably get... this camp meeting. I don't know how many of you have ever been to camp meeting, but you don't go to bed early during camp meeting. And then when you have late service, then you go to the dining hall and you buy something to eat. I got a good hamburger. And you sit and you visit with more friends that you haven't seen in years and years and years, And so then when I left there, it's almost a 30-minute drive from me over here to Sapulpa, because I have to drive very slow, especially on these back roads where there's no lighting. So it's late when I get in. So I knew I was probably going to be challenged, because I wanted to get up in time to have my prayer time before this. And so I just knew I was going to be challenged to try to be on here by 7:30. So here we are. All of that to say good morning from Sapulpa, Oklahoma. All right, let me share something with you. Good morning, Liz. Welcome to Sapulpa, Oklahoma. That's where I'm at, the beautiful campground here at Sapulpa. Sunday morning, we had an outstanding service at our church in Claremore. And Pastor got to talking about the potter. He wasn't really preaching. It was actually after we'd had a wonderful altar service. And he was talking about, he talked about the clay and the potter. You know, it's a familiar story. We use it a lot. But he said, he read this scripture in Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 3. He says, Jeremiah says, and in fact, this is kind of a confirmation, because I always turn my Bible app on in the morning when I'm getting dressed and getting ready and just listen to the word, and I never know for sure where I'm at. And this morning, when I hit it, it started reading this part of this story in Jeremiah. And he says, then I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheels. Now notice it says wheels, not just one, but on the wheels. And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again, another vessel, as seemed good to the potter to make it. And Brother Jimmy mentioned and brought out the fact that usually when we think of a pottery and we think of this verse, if there's a deformity or there's a mar in the clay, we blame it on the potter. But he said, in the case of you and I, it's never the fault of the potter. If there's a mar in my life, if there's a bump in the clay, if there's a crack in my vessel, it's not the fault of the potter. It's got something to do with the clay. And so my mind just left. I know you have a hard time believing that. Not really. And for my friends who've been after me, I'm drinking pure water. And we're going to talk about water. That's kind of funny. My mind left the clay, and my mind went to bread dough. And you know, for years I made hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of dozens of cinnamon rolls. And before I was privileged to obtain a nice big KitchenAid mixer that has a dough hook on it, I had to do it the old-fashioned way, kneading the dough. My hands don't work that well anymore, and so I'm thankful for a dough hook that kneads the dough. Excuse me. That should be edited out, shouldn't it? Sorry. This is what you see is what you get. But my mind went to the dough. I don't have any experience with clay, but I have lots of experience with kneading dough. And kneading dough is just taking the dough and working it and working it and working it to get everything mixed in it really well to the consistency that you want the dough to be. Now, after making cinnamon rolls for so many years and making so many hundreds of dozens, I'm guilty of not measuring the flour. I pour some flour in, I work it in, and if it looks like I need some more flour, I put some more flour in there. You know, that's kind of the way. My mama never used a recipe to bake a cake. Never. I don't know how she knew, but she just knew how much water to put in, how much oil, how much. She made homemade cakes. She didn't have cake mix. She never had a recipe. And I'm kind of that way by my cinnamon rolls now. I used a recipe for years, but it's kind of up here when I trust it. But with the flour, actually my recipe original recipe for flour calls from 4 to 5 cups of flour. And I never measure it. I just pour a little bit in, stir it in, put some more. And then I dump it out of my bowl onto my pastry sheet. And even after I've kneaded it, if I've used the dough hooks in my mixer, when I get to where I think it should be, I take it out of there and I put it on my pastry sheet and I work it a little bit more. And occasionally, I put too much flour. And that is virtually almost impossible to work with. It's tough. It's hard. It's just, it's not pliable. If I've got the mixture just right, that dough is soft and it's pliable in my hands. But it takes having the exact right amount of flour and water. Those are the two. I mean, yes, you have to have the yeast, you have to have the salt, you have to have the oil, but the two main ingredients that makes it pliable is the flour and the water. If you have too much flour and not enough water, your dough is going to be stiff. It's going to be hard, and it's not going to be pliable in your hand. And then my mind was drawn to John chapter 4, another story that I love so very much, where Jesus told the disciples, y'all go on, or, you know, I've got to go by Samaria. And so he ended up in Samaria, and he sat down near a parcel of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph, and Jacob's well was built there. Now, Jacob's well was not a spring-fed well. Jacob's well was a hand-dug well that collected water in the bottom from dew and seepage out of the ground. Doesn't sound very clean to me at all. But that's where the water came from that filled Jacob's well. And so Jesus sat on the well about noon. Now, typically the women came twice a day, morning and evening, to draw water from the well. But this woman came at noon, and probably scholars and Bible commentaries believe it was to avoid the other women because she didn't have the best reputation. Jesus picked this time. Jesus knew when this woman was going to be at the well, and he had a need to be there. And he was weary with his journey. The Bible said he was wearied with his journey. He needed a break. And that break was to talk to a woman who needed water. Aren't you glad for that this morning? That even when Jesus got weary with his journey, he wasn't too weary to offer water to a woman who came to draw water. So this woman comes to draw water, and Jesus tells her, give me something to drink. Because the disciples had left and they'd gone to the city to buy meat. And so it took this woman by surprise. I have a feeling her dough was hard. I have a feeling that the dough of her heart had too much flour and not enough water. It's tough. She was probably a tough old bird. Because Jesus says a little bit later on, when she said, I don't have a husband, he said, you said right. You don't have a husband. She said, you've had, when he told her to go call her husband, she said, I don't have a husband. He said, you said well that you have no husband, because you've had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. So she was probably a pretty tough cookie. And Jesus had time for her. He made time for her. I'm convinced that's why he went to Samaria, was for that woman. The dough of her heart was tough. If you've ever made homemade bread, you know what I'm talking about. When the dough is too stiff and it doesn't have enough water. Now, I've tried repairing dough like that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I've splashed more water on there and it's extremely hard. Once you get that tough, hard dough, it's extremely hard to get it back to the consistency. You've taken it too far. You've gone too far. But this woman hadn't gone too far for Jesus. The dough of her heart was hard. It was stiff. And so Jesus told her, he said, first of all, she said, you don't have anything to draw from the well with. You don't have anything. The well's deep. But Jesus told her, he said, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Okay? Let me just say this. As Jesus was saying it, if you knew who I was, if you only knew who you're talking to. I'm reminded of the disciples when they walked on the road and Jesus appeared and talked to them, and then he vanished, and their eyes were open. They said, didn't our hearts burn within us? We didn't know that's who it was. He'd hid that fact from them. Jesus said, if you knew who I am, if you only knew who it was you were talking to that asked you to give me a drink, you would have asked of me, and I would have given you living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with. How could you give me living water? Living water? What are you talking about? I mean, this was way over her head, out of her comfort zone. She said, are you greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. You can draw from this water every day, and tomorrow you're going to need water again. Because when the water runs out, you're going to be thirsty, just like I am. You're going to be thirsty. Have you ever felt like your water ran out? Have you ever been to a place spiritually where you've been drinking from the living water? I was praying this morning and I said, Lord, I'm transparent. My daughter always says, Mom, you don't have to be so transparent. You don't have to tell everything. That's just me. And I was praying this morning and I said, Lord, I got a leak somewhere because I've been lonely. And I need you to stop that leak up and fill me back up with your presence. Fill me up with your spirit, Lord, so that loneliness would evaporate. It's like being thirsty. I am by nature, I have dry mouth, and I'm thirsty all the time. I have something to drink during the night. I have been that way for most of my life. As far back as I can remember, I would get up during the night to get something to drink. And I wake up during the night now, and I have to have a drink. I go through the day, I got to have something to drink. And spiritually, sometimes that water runs out and I need another drink. Jesus said, told that woman, said, you can come here every day and draw water. Twice a day if you need to. Most of the women came twice a day, morning and evening. I don't know if she came noon and midnight or when she came the second time, or made 2 trips at noon. But he said, you're going to have to come back tomorrow. Because when you get through drinking this water out of the well, you're going to be thirsty again. But he said, whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing into everlasting life. And I have people come by and visit with me and call me and text me and take those little periods of loneliness. But Lord, I need you to stop the leak and fill me with your Spirit so that loneliness doesn't creep back in. He's done that for me for years now. But just lately, this last week, I've fought that loneliness. And I realized this morning there's a leak. And I asked the Lord to stop the leak. Stop it up, Lord. Just like this woman, her bread was too hard. The dough was hard. And Jesus said, you need water. You need water. Sometimes spiritually, we get to a place our dough is not pliable. I've watched potters and the wheel, and they have to keep the clay moist. If they let the clay get dry, they can't work with it anymore. It sets. I'm telling you, this morning, you and I have to have water. We have to have the living water to make us pliable and fit for the Master's use. I want to be pliable in his hands. I want him to mold me and make me. Over and over, he molds me and makes me into his likeness. He fashions the clay, a vessel of honor I am today. All because Jesus, he didn't throw the clay away. Now he is the potter, and I am the clay. It's molded in his image. That's where he wants me to stay. But when I crumble and I fall and my vessel breaks, he just picks up those broken pieces. He doesn't throw the clay away. You know what he does? He puts more water on it. He gets the clay wet. He gets it wet again. And over, he molds me and makes me into his likeness. He fashions the clay, a vessel of honor I am today. All because Jesus, he didn't throw the clay away. If you feel dry today, and you feel like you've gotten a little bit hard, I'm not saying you're backslid. I'm not saying you're lost. Just because I got a little leak and I'm a little bit lonely, I'm not backslid, because I recognize it. And I just say, Lord, stop up the leak and fill me completely with your Spirit. So if you feel like you've gotten a little hard, you're not real pliable, just say, Lord, Pour some water on me. Give me some of that living water and mold me and make me. Man, I'm telling you, there ain't nothing like a fresh loaf of hot bread. I like steak, but you give me my choice between a piece of steak and a hot loaf of homemade bread out of the oven and a slab of butter. I'm sorry, I'm gonna take that hot bread. But it's got to be just right. The dough has to be just right. It has to be soft and pliable to make it rise. It's all fluffy. It's kind of like got air holes in it when you cut it. Man, that's good bread. I want to be like that loaf of bread today. And I need that water just the right amount. Just the right amount. God bless you today. I'm getting ready to head over to the Bristow Campground for a day service and hear some more good preaching. Man, the preaching's been great this week, and the Spirit's been wonderful, and my soul has been fed, and my soul has made to be thirsty for more of that living water. God bless you, and where will I be next week? I don't know. Just check on here and find out. All right? God bless you. Have a great day in Jesus and a great weekend.